Good day and welcome to Numeracy and Mathematics 2. My name is Dr. Colin Toondu and I will be your tutor for this one, for the examination of this one. Now I want to take you quickly through the table of content. We're going to talk about graphs, we're going to talk about pies, tables, standard and expanded notation, and also estimation, and also ascending and descending order. We're also going to talk about fractions, decimals, and percentages, and also nth terms and the rules of the nth term. Also, we're going to talk about profit and loss, converting one unit to another, as well as writing values in words and drawing clock in analog. Then we also talk about the type of lines, shapes, and structure. We're also going to look at the calculating of volume, areas, circumferences, and object. Now let's start with the issue of the pie. For example, you have to draw a graph or a table or a pie. Sometimes they give you a table and then you have to draw a graph. Sometimes they give you a graph and then you have to draw the table. So it sometimes is the other way around. Now I have an example here of a graph where we are talking about the Premier League in Namibia in 2019, where we have our soccer team. We have Black Africa. Now here it shows the log: Black Africa, African Star, Life Fighters, Citizen, Mighty Gunners, Unam, and Tura Magic. Those are that's a graph that they are giving you. Now they want you to be able to draw this table that they gave you. They want you to draw a graph out of it. Sometimes they also want you to draw a pie out of it. Or sometimes they just want you to construct questions out of this thing. So that is what we are going to look at. So let's look at the first one. The information in the table can be used to draw the graph or a pie. Now let's look at the pie. When you have to draw a graph, and that is how your graph will look like. In other words, you will have the highest, the one with the highest score, which is Black Africa, followed by African Star, and the graph goes downwards. But when you look in this table here, you will notice that the numbers are actually in an increasing order because this is a log table. A log table means that is increasing from the highest, the team that have highest point vis-a-vis the team that is at the bottom of the table. And that's why your graph will look like that. So it is very important that when you are drawing graph that you have a title. In other words, your graph must have a title, and MTC Premier League 2019 is your title. The x-axis, you need to have your points and the team on your vertical axis. So it's very, very, very important that you need to know when you look at this graph that all the information provided are there. And then you have to calibrate your graph from 0 all the way up to 40, because 40 is the highest number that you can find on this graph, and you list your teams there as they are following each other. And now in case of a pie, you will notice that you have to draw a circle and then you have to divide this pie in the percentages in terms of the one with more points. For example, Black Africa is having 20 points. So their points are higher, so their graph will be a bit higher. It's followed by African Star, and so on, and it continues. So it's also still very important that in the pie, in case of a pie, you also need to have a table of content, not a table of content, a title for the pie, and then you also need to have the keys so that the people can know when you are talking about yellow, which team are you talking about. And sometimes you can also insert the names and the percentages within the pie itself. But sometimes you can give those ones as keys to the information. Now, sometimes they also ask you from that graph, they say you must construct 4 or 5 questions from the graph. So what do? You have to look at the graph and then construct the questions, as we say. Now, the one thing that you need to know when you are constructing graph is that the information or the answers that you are getting for that graph must be found on the graph. Don't ask something about the graph that the student will struggle to find where will I get that answer. For example, I will give you some examples of questions that you can ask and some examples of questions that you should not ask student. Now, the first one that you can ask him is, which team is on top of the Premier League MTC Premier League. In other words, the student have to now to answer this one by giving you, looking at the table, and then they give you the answer. The second question that you can ask is, how many points does Mighty Ghana has? Now the student can go to the graph and see and look at the points that Mighty Ghana has and give you the answer. What is the point difference between Live Fighters and UNAM? So the student can go and look at the points of UNAM and also look at the points of Live Fighters and calculate the difference between those two. Now when you find the difference between those two, then you have your answer. How many teams are between Black Africa and Tigers? In other words, you can count them. How many teams are in between these two? Now, questions that you should not ask is the following. From which region is Black Africa? Because that answer, the student will not find it on the graph. So those type of questions where you ask a student to say something that is not on the graph is not allowed. You will not get a mark for such a question. How many games are between Citizens and Tura Magic, for example? Because the graph is only showing the points, but it doesn't show the number of games that this soccer team have played and so on. So you cannot ask about games. You can only ask about either points or how many places they differ and so on. How many teams are in the MTC Premier League? That one you can ask because the student can count 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 or whatever, and then they can give you the answer. But for this one, you can't ask because that was only the first part of the Premier League. It's not the total teams that are in the Premier League. Questions that have no answer on the table are not relevant and should not be asked. That is what we are trying to say in this one. Now, standard and expanded notation. I want you to look at this table here. They say when writing numbers in expanded notation, you are showing the values of each digit. For example, if you have 3, 4, 4, 8, 6, 9, 3, and then you have to write the place value in those for those numbers. So this number can easily be understood like we place the 3 at the millions, the 4 at 100,000, the other 4 at 10,000, the other 8 is at 10,000, 100 is 6, 9, and 3. And that is how it should go. Now, what you need to know or to understand here is that the place value for each number, that one will help you to write numbers in standard and or expanded notation. Now, for example, when you look at this table, we say since 3 is in the place of a million, it means 3 million. 4 is in the place of 100,000, it means 400,000. The other 4 is in the place of 10,000, so it means 40,000. 8 is in the place of 1,000, it means 8,000. 6 is in the place of 100, it means 600. 9 is in the place of tens, it means 90. And 3 is in the place of ones, it means 3. Now, that is very critical information that you need to know, so that when they ask you, what is a place value for 3? Then it is in the millions. Now, you need to also understand the difference between place values and digit values. There is a difference, and sometimes students get confused between these two. Now, when you have to write this one, then you have to write it, for example, when you expand it, it will be 3 times 1 million, 4 times 100,000, 4 times 10,000, 8 times 1,000, 6 times 100, 9 times 10 plus 3. And that gives you your number that you are looking for. Now, let's look at another standard notation that is a bit different from the previous one that we're looking at. Sometimes we have the bigger numbers, 4,300,000. What we need to write in a different way, we can write that one in a different way as 4.3 times 10 to the power 6. Now, where is this 6 coming from? So the secret here is that you count the number of places and the comma move to the left and get to the position. So, for example, when you look at this one, you have 4, 3, 0, 0, 0, 0, 0. Now you want to write it as in standard notation, or what they call scientific notation. So the comma is actually at the moment here. It will move 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So it will be just there before 4. So your number will be 4 times 10 to the power 6. because the comma have moved 6 times to the left. When the comma move to the right, this the power becomes negative. If it moves to the left, the power becomes positive. So that is the secret that you need to know. Now, sometimes the numbers are negative. For example, in that one that you are saying there, they are saying 0,000037. So what you need to do is you need to count the numbers from where the comma is until it comes between 3 and 7. And when you see there, you will count 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 times to the right. If it's to the right, then the number is negative. So it becomes 3.7 times 10 to the power negative 7. Now, descending and ascending order, if we have to look at descending and ascending order, we just have to know that when we are talking about ascending order or descending order, we are talking about increasing in value. So, for example, if you have this drawing here, you can see that when this value here is increasing and is becoming more and more. So if you are going in that direction, you are ascending. In other words, you write the numbers from the smallest one to the biggest one. But if you are moving from the biggest one to the smallest one, then that is now descending order. You are descending downwards, ascending upwards and descending downwards. So that is the whole secret about this descending and ascending order that you need to know. Now let's look at these ones. They say numbers are said to be in descending order if they are arranged from the largest to the smallest number. It is easy to arrange 100, 18, 45, 2, 22. Very easy to arrange because those numbers we know them. So if somebody gives you a number like 100, and give you 18, give you 45, and give you 2, and give you 22. These numbers are very easy. We know if they say, for example, arrange this in descending order, then you know that 100, we will start most now from the biggest one to the smallest one. So 100 will be the first one, and then you can look at it and you can see 45 will be the second one, 22 will be the third one, 18 will be the fourth one, and 2 is the smallest. So that is how you will arrange it, and it's very easy when you are arranging numbers that are whole numbers. But it becomes a bit complex when you have numbers, for example, like you have 1 to the power 5, then you have 5 to the power 2, then you have 2 to the power 6, and then you have 3 to the power 4. Now, you will not know which number is bigger than the other one. So what you need to do is you need to arrange this number. You need to write them out first and see what is 5 to the power 1. What is 1 to the power 5? What is 5 to the power 2? What is 6 to the power 2 to the power 6, and so on. So what you need to do, you need to work them out. So let's see on the drawing what did we do. So we are saying, but if it becomes complex if the numbers are arranged like these ones that we have. So such number you need to find each value first. Now when you find each values first, you see that 1 to the power 5 is actually equal to 1 because it's 1 times 1 times 1 times 1 5 times, and it stays 1. And then 4 to the power 3 is 64. And then 5 to the power 2 is 25, 2 to the power 6 is 64, and 3 to the power 4 is 81. So if you have to arrange them in their order, or descending or ascending, it will be 81, which is the highest, which is now, if we are taking now descending order, then 64, another 64, 25, and 1. And that will be your arrangement, typical arrangement when you look at this one, because that is how it ascends. So in the other way, ascending order is the other way around. That's what you have to know, that in ascending order, you start from the smallest one and then it goes all the way up to the highest one. Now, fraction, decimals, and percentages. Now, they say sometimes convert 3/4 to decimal. Now, the very first step that you need to know if you get a number like this is that you need to multiply 4 by 25 to become 100. Now, why would you want to do that? So, when you multiply 4 by 25 to get 100 on the denominator, you also do the same with the numerator. In other words, so you will have an answer of 3 times 25 divided by 4 times 25. Now, the main reason is that you want to take this thing to percentages. When it is in percentages, it is easy for you to write it in decimal. Now your answer will be 75 over 100. If you have 75 over 100, if you divide 75 by 100, you will see that it will go 0.75. And that is your decimal number that you are looking for. So you have to convert it first into a percentage, your fraction, convert it into a percentage, which means it's out of 100. So you look at what number must I multiply with 4 to get 25. So you just look at your denominator. The very first thing that you need to do, you have to look at your denominator. If your denominator is 5, you multiply 5 by a number that will give you 100. And if your denominator is 3, you multiply 3 by a number that will give you 100. And that number that you use to multiply your denominator, you also use it to multiply with the top number. And that is how you go all throughout. So let's look at this other example. Here you have 1/2. Now, you can either take the number to 100 or you can take the number to 10. If you want, you can take it to 100. So 1 times 50 over 2 times 50 will take you to 100. But you still divide it and you see that it's 5/10. But if you want, you can just straight take it to 10. Then you say 1 times 5 over 2 times 5, because 2 times 5 will give you 10. So the number must either be 100 or 10, only those two numbers, your denominator. And that will make it easier for you to do the division, and your answer will be 0.5. But sometimes you need to convert a mixed number to a decimal. For example, 7, 1/4. The very first step that you need to do is you need to convert the fraction to a decimal fraction, which means that you need to multiply everything out, which is 7 times 4 plus 1. And you work it out and you will see what your answer will be. And you add the 2 and then you will have the final answer as the step is showing there. Now, 9/5. You have to convert the whole fraction to decimal, and that is 9 divided by 5. And that is equal to 1.5. So how did you get the 9 divided by 5? You need to know how to convert the decimal, the improper fraction first to a proper fraction. Add it to the whole number, 3 plus 1.8. So now that you are done, you take the 3, you add it to 1.8, and then you have an answer of 4.8. So first you deal with a fraction alone, and you later add the whole number to the fraction, and then it will become 1.8 plus 3, which is a whole number, and it becomes 4.8. Now let's look at the nth term. This one is one of the points that are always coming in the examination, is about the nth term. Now the formula for the nth term is nth is equal to dn plus a minus d. That one is a very, very critical number that you should know. The nth term, when you have to calculate the nth term, is dn plus a minus d. That is the formula that you should know. Now, what they are saying here is that the a represents the first term. Whatever the first term in that whole term is represented by a. And then the n next to the d, it represents the term number. In other words, you count the number of the terms. When you look at this one, for example, you have 6, 11, 16, 21. So A, we say, is there. It represents the first term. Now the first term in this case here is 6. So A will be 6. And then the N represents the number of tens. So you find out if we are talking about the number of tens, is it now? Or the term number. We talk about 1 is the term number for 6, 2 is the term number for 11, 16 is 3, and so on and so on. So you count the number of tens. Now, the number of, and D is the common differences between the terms. That you need to do now is that you subtract these two, you subtract those two, and you subtract those two. And you will notice that if you subtract 11 from 6, you get 5, and this one you still get 5, and you still get 5. You can notice that these numbers are increasing by 5, 5, 5, meaning that 6 plus 5 is 11, 11 plus 5 is 16, 16 plus 5 is 21. So you more or less know what is going on here if you just look at the formula and you understand the formula, which is very critical. Now for this sequence, D is 5, as I said earlier, and A is 6, so the formula for the nth term is nth is equal to 5n plus 6 minus 5, and that is equal to 5n minus 1. So your nth term here will be, as we are saying here, is 5n plus 6 minus 5, and when you calculate this, you will find out that it is 5n plus 6 minus 5 is 1. So your nth term is 5n plus 1. And that is what we are looking for, the final answer that you need to give to us when they ask you, what is the nth term for this rule? Now, find the next two terms. For example, when you look at that one, they are giving you the number line there was 2, 5, 10, 17, 26. So now you need to find out the same way. You need to know and use the nth term, where you know that A represents the first term, N represents the 10th number. So when you find out in the formula, your answer will be as follows, as the one given over there. Now let's look at when you have to find out the two next term. The first thing is that you need to find out the formula. Now when you find the formula, you can substitute the values. Now you will notice that here we are talking about 4, for example, 4 to the power 2 plus 1 is equal to 17, 5 to the power 2 plus 1 is 26, 6 to the power 2, and it continues like that. So now what they want is that the whole number line stop at 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. They want the 6th and the 7th. So in the place of n, you replace 6, and then again at the second one you replace with 7. And that when you replace with 6 in that formula, you'll get 37. When you replace it with 7, you get 50. So in other words, your next two term is 37 and 50. So you just replace it in the formula as I showed you earlier. Now the sequence 2, 6, 12, 20, 30, find the next two term again. It's the same thing, and they give you the formula. So if they give you the formula, you can see that 2 is the first term, 6 is the second, 12 is the third, 20 is the fourth, 30 is the fifth. So they want you to find term 6 and term 7. So in the formula, you replace n with 6, and you replace, and then you do the calculation. So if you replace n with 6, you will notice that your answer will be 42. So what I'm trying to say here is that your term is 2n plus 1 divided by 2. That is your formula that you have. So what you need to do here now is that you need to substitute the values. So And the term that you are looking for is 6. So here you substitute with 6, here you substitute with 6. Now if you substitute this, the n term here with 6, you will notice that your answer will be 42. So 42 would be your first one. And your second one, if you replace this with 7, your answer will be 56. So all what you do is you look at the n, the number of the number of the 10, which is 6, you substitute it there. If it's 7, you substitute it there and you do the calculation and your answer will be 56. Now, profit, loss, and gain. The purpose of running a business is to make a profit. We all know that you can't run a business without making profit, but sometimes business make a loss also. If a business person bought an item for 750, for example, and want to sell it at 7% profit, at what price should the person sell the product? So it's very important that as you are running a business, you need to know to calculate the loss, the profit, the gain, and so on. Now, 750 times 7% gives you $52.5, meaning they need to sell the item at 750 Namibian dollar plus the profit that he wants to make, which is $52.50. That gives you 802.5 cents, and that is how businesses work. They look at the price that they pay to purchase the product, they add their additional cost, they calculate that one in, and then they sell the product to the final customer or the end product to the final person that will buy the product, and that person has to pay for their cost calculated into the formula. Very, very important that you need to know how to do that. But sometimes you don't make a profit, you make a loss. Now, you don't deliberately calculate your products to make a loss. What you do is that sometimes the product have expired, but you want to get rid of it, or it is about to expire. Then you make a loss because you need to sell this product at least so that you can just gain what you have put in. Although you don't make a profit, sometimes you make a loss. Now let's look at this one. So if this same calculation was the loss, the 7% lost, then what you're going to do is you're going to take 750, which he bought or purchased the product for, and you minus the 7%, which is $52.05, and the person have sold that item for $697.5. That means that that shop or that owner have make a loss, and he didn't make a profit, which is also part of business. Now, the other thing is that I wanted to quickly talk about is converting percentages to dollars or cents to dollar, liters to milliliters. Now, it's very, very important that you need to know how to convert one product to the other. Now, in the examination, they can ask you they can ask either volume, or they can ask the distance, or they can ask any other conversion that you have to convert. For example, they will say the car traveled 5 kilometers. How many meters is that? And so on. So you need to know how to make that conversion. Now, let's look at this example here. They say $1 today is, say, for example, is 15 Namibian dollar. Now, somebody gives you 800 Namibian dollar, and you want to convert that 800 Namibian dollar to the US dollar. Or he gave you 800 US dollar and you need to convert it to Namibian dollar. You need to know how to convert the formula there. So the formula is that we say that one US dollar is equal to 15 US dollars. So what you need to do is you multiply that 800 with 15 to get 1,200 Namibian dollar. Now, converting one unit to another, we can convert one unit to another by using a scale. Now, I want to give you a scale here for distance, for example. So if you have to convert kilometers to meters to centimeters to millimeters, there is one thing that you need to keep in mind. You need to know that when you move from millimeters to centimeter, you multiply by 10. When you want to move from centimeters to meters, you multiply by 100. And when you want to move from meters to kilometers, you multiply by 1,000. Now, the reverse is also true. When you want to go back to the small ones, for example, you move from kilometers to meters, you need to divide by 1,000. When you move from meters to centimeter, you need to divide by 1,000 as well. And then it goes down like that, the same way as we have come and as I have explained earlier. So that is a very key thing that you need to know. What is the difference between the two values from when you move from millimeters to centimeters to meters to kilometers? When you know that what is the value, it becomes easier for you to do the conversion. So say, for example, they say 8 kilometers multiplied by 1,000, for example. It gives you 8,000 meters, because now you want to move from kilometers to meters, so you need to multiply by 1,000. Now, that 1,000, if you multiply it by 100, and that 8,000 multiplied by 100, you get centimeters, and then by 10, you get millimeters. You can also convert volumes like kilograms to grams by multiplying it with 1,000. Liters to milliliters, or to cubic centimeters by multiplying it with 1,000. Those values is values that one have to know. And also sometimes they ask you to convert time into other units of time. For example, they ask you to convert 10 years to centuries, or 1 year to 12 months, or to month. It can be month to weeks. Convert weeks to 1 week to days. You can convert day to hours, hours to minutes. You can convert minutes to seconds. Now, in that graph there, I show you what is it that you must know. The following thing is very, very important, that you must know that 10 years is a century. 1 year is 12 months. 1 month is 4 weeks. 1 week is 7 days. And 1 day is 24 hours. And 1 hour is 60 minutes. And 1 minute is 60 seconds, for example. And you can go higher and higher than that. For example, 100 years is a decade, and so on and so on. And it go on like that. Those are things that you need to know. Examples of calculation, for example, they are saying 22 kilometers to meters to centimeters and to millimeters. How do we calculate that? 3 days to hours to minutes to seconds. How do you calculate that? Now, you all need to know the previous slides, what I was explaining there. So 5 liter, for example, they say convert it to milliliters, to centimeters. So in the examination, sometimes they give you a table like this, and then they lift out the values, and you need to fill in those values. So you cannot fill in those values if you don't know the conversion ratio between the two units, for example, from kilometers to meters to centimeters to millimeters, or from hours to minutes to seconds. You need to know these things so that when you do the conversion, it becomes easier for you. Calculating the volume of a cylinder with radius 3,000 centimeter and a height of 12 meter. Now, when you look at that, please note that the given radius need to be converted first. You know that they give you the radius in centimeter, but then they give you the height in meters. So it's always good to convert to the highest one. So you need to convert your centimeters to meters. So it's one way of where they are assessing you to do the conversion as well. Because many a time when students get this type of questions, what they do is that they just take that 3,000 centimeter, they multiply it, or they do whatever with the 12 meters. But you cannot convert units that are not similar. You must make sure that you convert the unit to similar units. Don't convert it to smaller ones. Always convert it to the bigger one. It's very, very important to do that. So therefore, the volume will be pi r square h. That's a volume for a cylinder. The formula for the volume of a cylinder is pi r square h. So pi, you know that is 14.353 something, and that is also on your calculator. You can just press it on your calculator. And here they are saying that the radius is 3,000 centimeter, but you have to convert it to meter. It becomes 30 meters squared multiplied by 12 meters, and then your answer will be 10,800 square meters. And that is your final answer, what they are looking for. So it is also very critical that students also know the formulas for, because you get a mark for writing the formula. Know the formula for all the shapes, whether it's a cylinder, whether it's a rectangle, a right angle, or a triangle, or a square. You need to know the formula so that you can be able to use the formula when the question arrives. If you don't know the formula, you will not know how to do the calculation, because you will not know that the radius is supposed to be square, for example, or is it just not squared, or which one am I supposed to use. So it's very critical that you know your formula for all these shapes. Now let's look at the next one. You have 50 liters plus 70,000 milliliters plus 0.5 liters minus 4 liters. Very, very confusing. Some students, what they do is they just start adding everything. But you can see that the 50 is in liters, the 70,000 is in milliliters. Those are not similar units. And 0.5 is in liter, and the other one is in liters as well. So, and as I say, always convert to the highest value. So you need to convert that 70,000 milliliters to a higher value so that it can be similar to the rest. You can see that the rest are liters. So if you convert it to liters, it becomes 70 liters. Now when it becomes 70 liters, it's easy for you to add or to subtract or to calculate that value. So you say 50 liter plus 70 liter plus 0.5 liter is equal to minus 4 liter is equal to, you get actually 120.5 liter minus the 4 liter, and then you get your final answer. And it's very, very critical that you write down your calculations. Many students, what they do is they take a calculator, they type, they punch in the information, and then they write the answer there, and then they only get 1 mark out of the 4 or the 3 marks that are given there, because there is no formula, there is no workout. We don't know how did you come to that answer. So you need to show us that this is how I arrive at the answer, and you get a mark for that. We don't just look at the answer. We look at the formula, we look at the method that you follow, how you do your calculation, and then we look at the final answer and the unit also. Please don't forget to write liters at the final answer, or meters or millimeters or whatever the value is. You need to write the unit also there. Now write the following in words is one of the requirements that we have to do, or what we like to do always, or questions that we ask is you write, for example, 550.40. That one becomes 550 Namibian dollars and 40 cents. You write the whole thing in words. 550 Namibian dollar and 40 cents. Very important that you write that 40 cents. Very important that you write that Namibian dollar, because that N dollar stands for Namibian dollar. Don't just write the number. Then you have, for example, 40,003 liters. Now they say write it in words. Many students will just write 40,300 or 40,030. It is not. It is 40,003 liters. That is how you write it in words. You write the liters also out. Write these times in words. For example, 23H30, 0000, 09H15. So you need to write the word in words out. In other words, it's 11:30 p.m. When you are writing in words, you need to write whether is it AM or is it PM. So is this one, we know that is 23, just post midnight, before midnight. And that is 23:30 or 11:30. The next one is 00H00, and that we know that it is 12 o'clock p.m. in the middle of the night. The other one is 9:15 a.m. after midnight. So don't write is 9:15 or is 15 minutes past 9, which is also correct, but it's always good to use things like quarter past, half past, and so on and so on. Now the next thing is also that you are required to draw clocks. For example, you need to draw a clock for 21 hours or 12:30 or 0005. Many students struggle to do this drawing. It's very, very important, and I wanted to show you how to draw this clock quickly. The very first thing that you need to do if you have to draw a clock, you need to draw a circle. I don't know how visible is that. So when you draw a circle, on top here you make a mark, but you must use instrument. Right now I'm not using instrument. Then you make those 4 marks, and then between each one of these 4 marks you make another mark, and that gives you your time. Now after that, when you have to draw a clock for example for 9 o'clock, you know that 9 o'clock will be right here for our small stick, the short one, and then the long one will be right there, and it should show exactly on top of the hour, and then it goes on like that. If you have to become 12, you still do the same. For example, the next one will be 12:30, the other one will be 12:05. Now, triathlon runner took 22 minutes swimming, 45 minutes running, and 43 minutes cycling before completing the race. Find the total time. So what you need to do here is you need to add all the values. 22 minutes, 45 minutes, 33 minutes. And then you have your answer. And that is 22 plus 45 plus 33 is 100 minutes. And then that you convert it to hours. That becomes 1 hour and 40 minutes. Then you need to know this type of lines. It's very, very important that you learn this type of lines. This one I will just leave it like that because you need to know what is a ray, what is a parallel line. You need to draw this line also, learn to draw, to name them, to identify them, because they are mostly asked in the examination. Now with regard to shapes, I put a poster or a picture there of all the shapes that you need to know. Now in terms of shapes, you need to know 3 things. You need to know the name, you need to know the property, and then you need to know how to draw the shape. They are all there. Rectangle, square, all of them. Rhombus, trapezium, and kite, and so on. The same with the properties of 3-dimensional shapes. I also put it there. You just need to know how to draw them, how to give their property, and how to name them. Now, calculations of shapes, I also put the formula for you. I give you examples how it is calculated. So what you need to do is just take these drawings and practice how to draw these, practice how to calculate the volume, how the shapes, the area, and so on. The same with that drawing is also showing you all the shapes and how you calculate. Learn these formulas. I cannot emphasize more than this. You need to study the formula so that you can know which formula to use for which shape. And then finding the volume of a cuboid, for example, I give you an example there. The volume of a cuboid is length times breadth times height, and then you have to multiply and you find the volume. Thank you very much.